What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Wicked Lore with Wayne and Neoma. I, of course, am Wayne, and that
And
is Neoma. How you doing,
hi,
man?
folks. I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you very much. Glad you're able to join me on this second installment of Wicked Lore. Had fun with this one.
Yeah. This was a little close to home for me, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, it really was. I've never been there. You've been there a couple of times. Of course, we're talking about the
hmm
Bell Witch. It's no secrets. I did mine back on Tuesday. You did yours last night, and we're rounding it out tonight. But
Yeah.
I've never been there. You've been a couple times, right?
Yes, I have. Now, both times I was there, it was too hot to go and tour the cabin, but that's a replica anyway, so I didn't feel cheated by that. But I have been down in the cave. Now, I have to be honest with you, I have a hard time going in caves. It's nothing to do with claustrophobia. If there's something underground that makes me violently ill,
Mm.
Um, I go in a cave and I come out and I'm sick for hours. But I went into this cave and I didn't feel anything. So whatever it has enough fresh air circulating through it apparently that it doesn't make me sick. It's a bit of a trek down the hill to get to it. It's not. If you're going to go, you better wear a good pair of hiking boots or tennis shoes because you're going to trek down the hill, down the path, and then inside the cave, there's clearly, you can follow the track of where they go, but it's not it's not built up. It's you're walking on uneven ground. At points, there's a stream that runs through the cave, and at certain points in the stream, you're either going to wade across it or step across it. Um, the There's a couple of really cool formations in there. One kind of looks like a big, tall, like being. I almost like the Grim Reaper to me. I thought, or an angel or something. Um, and in that cave, we went. I think they take you about, I want to say, about 800 yards back
Oh
into the
wow!
cave. And that's not all the way. That's as far back as they take you. So it goes all the way in there pretty deep.
Now you say they take you. Is it like a guided tour?
Yes, the family that lives there, and they are descendants of the Bell one way or another, and I'm not sure how, but they're related to the Bell family, to the original Bell family. They own the farm now. They have a little concession when you pull up, and it's a really, I mean, it's just beautiful there. It really is. They have a really nice little farm there. You drive down the long driveway, and then it kind of goes off to the left, and they have a little open-sided sort of a open-sided shed there. You can buy books. That's where I bought my black book on. Holy cow! I've been looking all over for this book, and I just saw it.
There it
This
is.
is where I bought this book. Try to get it out of the light. But this is the book that I bought. It is called The Bell Witch. It was written by Charles Bailey Bell, MD. That's the great grandson you talked about in your episode
Mhm.
of John Bell. And this you can get this book there. I don't know where else you can get this book. I don't know if they have it available on Amazon or not. But towards the back of this book, the witch actually made some predictions, and I believe you talked about some of those predictions that did come true. Some of them didn't. Some of them are still out there to come true. Um, but the fun thing about this book is that he presents the Bell Witch very, very different from how we traditionally perceive this creature. Um, Almost like this is just a family friend that would stop by and hang out. People would come to visit to ask it questions. The it, of course, I think the most famous, and we both discussed it, the most famous thing that it did, other than kill John Bell, was it wanted to prove that it was omnipresent, and to do so, it repeated word for word two separate sermons that took place at the same time on the same Sunday, and that was quite miraculous.
Yeah,
And
I remember talking about that part, and the only thing I could really think of was how could that be proven?
well, so. apparently, back in the day, there might be three churches in an area that as frontier as Tennessee was at the time. And you have to remember that this is actually before the western part of the three parts of Tennessee was part of the state. That was still part of the Mississippi Territory. It wasn't added until I think 1822, 2 years after John Bell died. So this was about as far west as you could go in the United States. And this I'm saying there's two or three. Actually, there's probably two counties after Robertson County that before you came to the end of Middle Tennessee, what's now Middle Tennessee. But this was pretty frontier territory back then. And there might be two or three churches. One might be a Methodist church, one might be a Baptist. In fact, I think at that time there was a Methodist, a Baptist, and maybe a Presbyterian church in this general area. But people didn't go according to their own beliefs. They went according to whatever. I mean, there was John Bell was a deacon at the Baptist church, but this Sunday he might go to the Presbyterian church, or next Sunday he might go to the Methodist church. So there were always people going to all the different churches, and they gathered. And also, you have to remember, this is a time when church was more of a nightly thing. They had your Sunday morning sermon, and then they had nightly prayer meetings and some of those might happen at people's houses, some of those might happen at the church. Anyway, so the people got together. You got two people sitting in the room and like I said, this guy acted like the Bell Witch was more of just kind of a member of the family that hung out. But it didn't make her, and they did call her Kate. They had a tendency to call her Kate, which we assume is after Kate Batts. But she's sitting around and she's telling them, and whether or not it was actually word for word, I don't know. They might have gone back to the minister and checked his notes to see. I don't know. But they had people listening and they're like, yeah, that's exactly what he preached. And those are things he said. So they had people who were in the services that she was later telling this to who were in agreement that she was right. And now word for word, I don't know. But the other thing that's really interesting is I think the most fascinating part to me is not the witch. It's what started it all. It all the way back. Everybody always starts the story of the Bell Witch with the animal that John Bell shot at, that he didn't know what it was. It looked like a dog with maybe a rabbit's head. Some people say it had horns or antlers. It was just a very strange looking animal. But interestingly, look up the Ozark Howler and look up descriptions of the Ozark Howler. And we're not that far. I mean, it's at that time, I think the Ozark Howler really is a cryptid. Obviously, it's a cryptid, but I think it's an animal that hasn't been discovered yet. And that's because there's so much of Arkansas and Missouri that are still very wooded and maybe they've been explored, but they're not real well settled. And so I think that it's still out there. And I don't think there's any reason to believe that its territory might have been farther east at that time. And if that's not the case, then you also have to look at the fact that Adams, Tennessee is really only about 50 miles from the southern entrance to the land between the lakes. And it's about 50 miles from Montgomery Bell State Park and White Bluff. And those are places that have legends of creatures that sound very much like dogmen. You've got the Werewolf Springs, you've got the White Bluff Screamer, you've got the Beast of the LBL. And I think that John Bell, with all of my heart, I believe that he shot at either an Ozark Howler or a dogman.
Now, give everybody a description of the Ozark Howler, because I'm not even sure if I really know.
The Ozark Howler is often described as being cat-like. It's a big, has a big body, like a almost like a bear. It has, I believe, it has both bipedal and quadrupedal capabilities. Um, it is said to have horns. It definitely has big teeth. It's very fast. And people have seen it. Daniel Boone, if I'm not mistaken. Gosh, I wish D.A. Roberts was here right now. I believe it was Daniel Boone actually supposedly shot and killed one. Or he shot one and wounded it and then saw another one later that was limping. I'm not sure which the case was. But so Daniel, it's part of the Daniel Boone lore because he killed one or shot one anyway. It is part of the Missouri and Arkansas lore, and it's been seen as far west as Texas. And I think, based on what I know about the Bell Witch, that it's been seen as far east as Tennessee. They call it the howler because they say it's got a scream that is just a horrifying. It's. I don't know if you're familiar with the Brown sound, and I'm not talking about Eddie Van Halen's Brown sound. I'm talking about one of my favorite stories is, and I'm sure people have heard it. I don't know if they have before or not, but Nikolai Tesla and Mark Twain were good friends. And Nikolai Tesla, of course, played with a lot of sound wave stuff. And there was one particular sound wave that he could run through a table that would vibrate the table. And Mark Twain was fascinated with that. He loved getting on that table and having Nikolai Tesla run that sound so that, the vibration would like relax his body and make him feel good or whatever. Or whatever. Anyway, and he would always say, turn it up a little, turn it up a little. And of course, Nikolai would be like, no, you've had enough. You don't want to put, no, turn it up a little, turn. Well, one day Nikolai turned it up, and surprisingly, it caused Mark Twain to lose control of his bowels.
Oh, wow.
Mark Twain, who always wore white suits.
Oh,
And that's how it got its name, the Brown Sound.
are you
And
serious?
absolutely, that's why they nicknamed it the Brown Sound.
I
Um,
always every time you were on, Naomi, every time I talk to you, I learn something. It's not not always,
yeah.
but I learned something. That's awesome.
Well,
Um,
um, I think that the Ozark Howler has its own brown sound because if I heard it scream, I wouldn't want to be wearing white pants. So that is what I think that I really do. I mean, I've vacillated back and forth between a dog man and the Ozark Howler, but I do think that John Bell shot at one or the other, and I don't think that it has any relation to the witch. I just don't. I think that people have tied them together and they said that that was the beginning of the end for John Bell, but
do
I
you think that was
don't.
just a coincidence? Because the part that I read talked about him shooting at this animal in the cornfield, and then later that night, the banging on the house started.
Well, I've heard that. I've heard that also the children, after he saw that, they saw it, that the banging on the house and the windows and the doors started, that the gnawing sound of the rats chewing on the bedposts all started. The There you go. The Yes, I do remember that too, Carson, that he claimed to have killed a Yahoo. But it if and it may have been Davy Crockett. Like I said, I wish that DA were here because he's the expert that I am. Nobody's an expert, but he's the most knowledgeable person I know in relation to the uh, the Ozark Howler. He can tell you a lot more about it than I ever could. But
Mm.
he, um, either Daniel Boone or Davy Crockett did kill, or I don't want to say kill, I want to say shot an Ozark Howler. So, um,
I always get them mixed up, Davy Crockett and
and
Daniel.
Daniel Boone, me
Uh,
too.
One of them, Saul, claimed to see. I think he called it a Yahoo or something
Hmm.
like after he was sleeping or something like that, and he woke up. But he claimed it spoke to him.
Oh, see, I don't know that. I All I know is that
Oh, which one was at the Alamo?
Davy
Crockett.
Crockett.
It was Davy Crockett. It said that it spoke to him and warned him to stay away from the Alamo.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. I
Yeah,
guess you should have listened.
yeah.
But yeah, one was at the Alamo and the other became a senator, right? Is that how you tell them apart?
I
Or
don't. I
maybe the
can't
one that
tell
was
them
at the
apart.
Alamo. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so it was. I know that they happened in conjunction with each other. I know that the sounds began very close to that shooting. I know that the kids also saw a strange creature that they couldn't identify. I know that the bed sheets being yanked off the bed began. All of this began around the same time or shortly after the shooting at that one animal. The one thing that I do question, and that is that in a lot of the stories, and in the case that I presented in my video last night, they say that the thing disappeared when he shot at it. It vanished, and I don't know that because I tend to be more of a flesh and bone person.
Hmm.
I don't I don't make fun of the people who they call woos. I don't doubt. I'm not going to say you're wrong, but I need to see that to be able to comprehend it. I mean, it's just the way my mind works. I can't
Yeah.
help it. It's just how my mind works. So I tend to think of things like the Ozark Howler, the Dogman, Bigfoot, the Mothman, the Jersey Devil. I think of them as truly the true definition of a cryptid, which is an unidentified scientific being that just has not been classified scientifically because it has not been identified by science. And because I think of them that way, I have a hard time attributing things like the ability to disappear or go through portholes, things like that, to them. It's just,
Just looked
there
it
you
up.
go.
And
Yeah.
claimed to have had many encounters with the howler.
Thank you, Carson.
I'm just not very
So,
familiar with the howler. I need to look into it.
well, we'll have to do our next show on the Howler then.
You heard it here. You heard it here.
Um, yeah, because I picked DA's brain about it. Maybe we can get him to come on the show and talk to us about it.
That'd be cool.
Um, but yeah, I have a hard time attributing those paranormal abilities to them because I just my mind doesn't connect dots that way.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people that even if I saw it, I'd be like, yeah, somebody slipped some mushrooms in my coffee, I'm pretty sure. So, um, having said that, there are things that, I do believe that if it had, a lot of people think that Bigfoot at least has hollow hair follicles,
Yeah.
which, as we know, with creatures like um, polar bears, would make them blend in quite well. And maybe it just turned right and it made it look like it disappeared. I don't know. I don't, he was shooting with an old muzzle loader, which is what they
Yeah.
would have had at that time. Possibly the smoke got in his eyes, and by the time the smoke cleared, it was gone. I don't know. I just have a hard time thinking that it just dissolved in front of him. I don't know that that would truly,
And that
um,
makes so much more sense, because
yeah,
think about the time and the guns that they were using back then. Those single shot musket type muzzle loaders where you got to pound the ball
yeah,
in and pour the gunpowder in and bottle
yeah,
thing, but it took forever to load a gun and they put off a lot of smoke. So,
yeah,
and I imagine the recoil is horrible. So you pull that trigger, you're thrown back, your eyes are closing, you open them and there's smoke, and they have plenty of time to get out of the way.
right. And now, if I happen to be in the woods someday and I see a cryptid, any cryptid, name one, I don't care, and it vanishes in front of me, I will come back and apologize on this show to the whole world for doubting them, because it's not really doubt, it's just a need to be able to see it, to understand it. But I will come on this show and I will say, look, I'm a jerk. And I'll be the first one to say that I, didn't quite get it.
Yeah, I don't think
But
anybody call you a jerk because it's just what you believe. I believe the same thing. The first couple year or so that I was doing this, you could not tell me any differently. The thing
yeah,
was that Bigfoot was a biological creature. That's all it is. It's a primate that we haven't caught up with yet. We don't know anything about it because we've never caught one. But I've talked to probably a couple hundred people now since doing this, interviewed well over 100 now, and these people, they're seeing
they're-
something.
yeah, and they're sincere. And that's why I'm not ever going to say you're wrong, because I wasn't there to see what they saw. And I
Absolutely.
did an interview a few years ago on another channel with a gentleman whose name shall remain nameless, um, who really upset me because I have a hard time with Dogman. And the reason I have a hard time, I can't wrap my mind around it, because there is nothing on this planet that terrifies me more than the concept of a Dogman.
Mm. I'm
And it
with
has, I mean, werewolves have always been the monster creature that scared me the most. Those are the monster movies that I watch like this,
you.
and I'm 58 years old and I still watch them like this. But he, this man who is very knowledgeable on Bigfoot, and was there to talk about Bigfoot. When I brought up Dogman, he said, I'm going to upset a lot of people and I'm going to say it's all a bunch of BS because I think it's mistaken identity. And I was stunned. I mean, to the point that I kind of made a fool of myself. I embarrassed myself because I was like, well, I can't wrap my mind around it. But I look back at that interview and I just am so frustrated with it, because how dare somebody who believes in something that is, who everybody who sees it is told they've mistaken it for something else for it, tell me that a dog man isn't real because he hasn't seen one. I must be seeing something else and mistaking that. And I'm never going to do that to another person. If you believe in little green fairies and you've seen them, I'm not going to argue with you. You absolutely. If
Yeah.
that's what you saw and it didn't come out of a bottle of absinthe, then good for you.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I don't know what to make of Dog Man. I've said it 1,000 times. I'm not going to say that anybody's full of crap that's seen one because I just don't know. I don't know what to make of it, and I shared that opinion with that gentleman, and you're going to have to tell me his name off air because
Yeah, I will.
but I was along those lines too. I thought that these people were misidentifying a Bigfoot, but when you talk to them, they say no, that's not the case. That this was
No,
a
because yeah, I mean, there's a difference. The dog man has a snout. There are certain types of Bigfoot that can be categorized. There's the Gugway that has more of a snout. It looks like a mandrill. And then there's the I can't think of what it's called. It's another one that starts with G. Has a snout, but they're more in line with Bigfoot. But you know, anybody who describes a Bigfoot.
yeah.
Are you familiar with? Oh, I just like this guy so much. I love to listen to him talk. He tells the best stories. Um, oh, thanks you, Sandra. Um, oh my gosh, what is Baker? Kumbo Baker. Are you
Yeah.
familiar with him?
I've never met him, but I know who he is.
I got to meet him once, just briefly, and I really enjoyed listening to his stories. For years and years and years, when he would take these encounters down and people would talk about a snout, he would say, well, this just must be some kind of weird dog or weird Bigfoot. And it took him years, and I mean decades, of studying and taking encounters and researching before he finally was like, you know what? I suspect there's something else out there. So it takes a while. I mean, the whole thing, nobody nobody is born saying, well, maybe we are, but most of us grow out of it saying there's big hairy men out there in those woods. You know, it generally doesn't happen that you really firmly believe in that until one of them crosses your path.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're like, huh,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
I'm with you, Neoma. I'm never going to call anybody crazy when they come on and talk about, or anywhere, and talk about something that they've seen. You know, I've had one believed sighting of a Bigfoot. I have thermal pictures to prove it. I've shared that. Anybody wants to see them, I'll show you. But it was up on top of a mountain in North Georgia, and it wasn't that time, but it was a time before. It was like 2 weeks before this sighting. My buddy Walls, Jasper Walls, he's the vice president of my organization, Animal Research. It was just he and I that went up there, and it was like late December, just early January, I think it was after Christmas. Just bitterly cold up on that mountain. It was in the teens. And we went up there, and it was our first time ever being there. So, just as a courtesy, I stopped in at the ranger station, which is at the foot. And I just wanted to make sure that we were allowed to camp and that we weren't doing anything wrong. So I stopped in. It was this young guy, mid 20s, I'd say, very polite, personable young man. Um, tell him what we're doing. Oh, yeah, you guys go up there. Don't cost anything. First come, first serve. Just be careful and all this, just basic information. And so I finally, he's so personable and making me feel so comfortable that screw it. I'm just going to ask him. We're up here. We're researchers looking for Bigfoot. Have you heard anything? Because we've heard several encounters from on top of this mountain. And he just kind of got a little grin on his face, and he said, "No, no, not Bigfoot, not Bigfoot." And I said, "Okay," just thinking he was going to laugh at me. He said, "I swear to God," he said, "but people have talked about gnomes." And I said, "What?" I thought he was making fun of me. I started laughing.
no.
I laughed. This was back in 2020, early 2020. I hadn't been doing this long at all, and I haven't heard of garden gnomes. But this man said there's been a few people to talk about seeing gnomes up there, and not only like campers and hunters, but there was a respected ranger, an older guy that talked about it, and apparently they were doing some work up there. This is what he told me. Didn't give me all the details, but they were doing some work, some earthwork, dozers and stuff, moving stuff around, and somebody spotted these tiny looking little humans, called it
Mhm.
in to someone, and he told me within 20 minutes they got a phone call to stop all of the construction work and leave the area.
There is a really great story that Cameron Buckner did, probably the best story he ever did on his show. And I believe it was about, it's probably been a year and a half ago now. And he talks about a couple of old gentlemen brothers who lived in Mississippi. And the one brother died, and the other brother told a story. And what had happened was the brother who had died years and years ago, like back in the 40s, had apparently shot and killed a Bigfoot. And he buried it. But the really interesting part about that is not the Bigfoot part of that story to me. It's the little people that helped the brother. Um, and some people call them. Some people say they're the gnomes. Some people confuse the puckwudgies. Are you familiar with the puckwudgie?
I have heard
They
of them. Yeah.
confuse them with the gnomes, but I think that those are like mini Bigfoots. Those are like Doctor Evil's mini me. um, there, of course, there's puckwudgies in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin and Ohio. I think are the four places where you're most likely to see a puckwudgie.
Mm,
But I find that really interesting because I have met and talked to people who have said, "Well, it's not a Bigfoot; something a lot smaller than that." And in a lot of cases, a lot more evil than that. Now, other people say the opposite, but
I started doing these shorts, on my channel, which led us to do this.
hmm
I think it's the third or the fourth one that I did was something called the Moon-Eyed People,
hmm
and there's a mountain in North Georgia, not far from where we were camping. There is like a statue erected that talks about the Moon-Eyed People, and if I remember correctly, it was like a Native American tribe before the Cherokees or something. They were really, really tiny, and
hmm
called moon-eyed for big eyes. They were called moon-eyed because they could only see at night or something like that. But they had long white beards. They were extremely short. I wonder if they're still around. And if that's what
Me
we're seeing,
too.
we call them
It's
gnome.
possible. It's possible. Is that I think that I actually started to do a story on that, and that may have been the first one of your stories that I saw. And I was like, "Oh, Wayne's doing these. These are cool." Um, but
That
I
one,
am associating that with also the Welsh prince that supposedly is there like a wall built up on that mountain too, like a almost like a looks like a castle footings or something in that same area because I'm
Fort
associating
Mountain.
that with a
I think I think there is something like that. I
yeah,
think.
which is legend says that a Welsh prince who was be his he and his brother had to fight over who would get inherit the crown. Just kind of weird because that's not quite the way it worked in Wales, but and then when the one didn't want to fight his brother to the death, he got on a boat and sailed across the ocean and discovered the Americas, and supposedly built began a castle up on that mountain. And I want to say it was with the help of the Moon Eye people,
Hmm.
or he discovered. Anyway, he went back to Wales and got a colony of people and came back to America. Now there is a tribe of Native Americans in the United States somewhere that speak Welsh. And they apparently there was a minister. I Baptist is the primary religion in Wales, or was, but it could have been, an Episcopalian or whatever. Anyway, he was a missionary, and he was about to be killed by these people, and he began to pray in Welsh, and they recognized his language, and they didn't kill him because they realized that he spoke their language. So there is actually a Native American tribe whose language is based on the Welsh, which I'm going off subject. The Moon Eye people, the particular, this is the same area, and I'm sure it is. One of the things that's interesting about that particular area of North Georgia, and in fact, most Southeast Indians, is that their DNA suggests that they all go back to the Mayans in Central and South America and Southern
Hmm.
Mexico. So, and they are small people. So I could see where the Moon Eyed people would be. I could see where small people would beget small people, would beget smaller people. I mean, when you want to breed a dog down, you can do that in size by who you're breeding it to. And if you've got a small contingent of people and you're breeding them together and they're getting increasingly smaller, I can easily see. I can't explain why they can only see at night, but I could certainly see where the size would come from.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. We got way off topic, didn't we?
yes, we did. We are not talking about the Blair Witch, are we?
No. No, we're not. But that's all right. It just that was my whole reason for doing these things was just to get people talking,
Yeah.
and
I'm really good at taking you down rabbit holes. So
yeah,
if you don't mind jumping off topic, hang out with me because we'll talk about anything.
do not mind at all. Well, we're about 35 minutes, and we wanted to keep these around 30 minutes, so it's probably a good time to get out of here, and we'll start working on number three if you want.
About a
Yeah,
couple of weeks. Give me a couple of weeks because
that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I
I
think
got
we
a
did
big,
3 weeks for this last one, and
yeah.
yeah, I know you're busy. I'm busy. Paranormal Odyssey. I'm getting ready to ramp up production on it, and to do at least three, maybe even 4 episodes a week. And I can't talk about it right now, but Brian and I are in talks with someone else about taking the shows a little bit bigger. But there'll be an announcement for that later. I can't say anything right now. That's just a little teaser. But all right, Neoma, thank you for taking the time to come and hang out and chat with me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. You know you are always welcome. And like I said, we'll get ready to do round 3.
Sounds good to me.
All right, guys, everybody, audience members, thank you for coming and hanging out on this late notice. I didn't get it ready till literally about 20 minutes before showtime. That's my fault. So I didn't put it out there for you guys to get in here in time, but I appreciate the ones that did. You guys are awesome. I love you. Thank you for all that you do. All right, we're going to get out of here, guys. Y'all be good to each other, be good to yourselves, and we'll see you next time.
Good night.